100 years ago, when I was a radio news reporter in this community, that was before the internet changed the world and before social media and smartphones kind of reduced the need to be in the same room with one another, I would routinely pop in various offices at the Brazos County Courthouse. And I would talk to elected officials and the people serving under them and try to kick up stories for my newscast. Well, one of the people I became friendly with back then, and this was 1990-something, was an assistant prosecutor named Ed Spillane. Now, Ed wasn't just a skilled and smart member of the district attorney's office, but he was helpful and funny and just a genuinely nice guy, especially for a Harvard graduate. So then you flash ahead a fair number of years, and we found ourselves working together for the city of College Station. I was a lowly communications guy. Ed was the presiding judge for College Station Municipal Court. And that's a city council appointed position that I think he's held since about 2002. And Judge Spillane hasn't just fundamentally changed the way municipal court operates in College Station. His influence has been felt in communities across the country, thanks to his professional involvement at the national level, and even a 2016 opinion piece that ran in the Washington Post, and that earned a ton of attention. He is still doing transformative work, which is why he's with me today. Welcome to Brazos Matters. I am Jay Sokol. Everyone, please rise for the Honorable Presiding Judge, Edward Spillane III. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, Jay. My face is turning red, I think.
That's the best introduction you've ever had.
That's right. That's a great introduction.
So for those who don't know what the municipal court judge in College Station does, can you talk a little bit about the cases you hear, the kind of cases you hear, and the full scope of your court's operations?
Well, at some point, I probably see everyone in Brazos County. We cover it's a criminal court, but Texas, unlike a lot of states, all of our traffic cases are criminal. And so traffic tickets. I see the traffic tickets, speeding, going through a red light, etc. Then I see alcohol cases where I see a lot of college students because they're very age-related. So minor in possession of alcohol, driving under the influence, public intoxication, which is not age-based. You can be over 21 and get a public intoxication arrest. I see assaults, thefts, low-level thefts, and then we see city ordinance violations as well. So they're all fine-only cases. You can go to jail if you don't show up, but it's a criminal court, and it's a good variety of cases.
Is it pretty much the same sort of ratio year to year to year, or do you see kind of differing trends as time moves on?
We see various trends. Sometimes it's based on the police chief and the police department, but we've seen a decrease in the last 10, 12 years. We've seen a decrease in filing of Class C misdemeanors overall, and quite a decrease in juvenile case filings. Then, after COVID, we've seen a little bit of a rise of some behavior-related crimes like public intoxication, assaults, and we've seen in the last several years, and everything I'm saying has actually been true in Texas. We've seen a rise in ordinance violations. We're the only court that can see an ordinance violation. Those are passed by the wonderful city council we were talking about, and they're specific to our city. And we've seen a rise of those violations in the last couple of years.
Okay. Is there any more in terms of the kinds of things that your court and court staff does that maybe we just have no idea about?
Well, one of the happy things I just did this morning is I do offer free of charge weddings. So when people, you have to be 18 and they go to the county clerk's office and get a marriage license. As long as we're not having court at the time in our courtroom, I will preside over. I have a brief ceremony and I sign and file the marriage certificate. So we do weddings there at the court. Our clerks do, my goal is for people not to come back and forth too much. So our clerks do 90% of the work up front. When you go to College Station Municipal Court, you often are dealing with the clerks. That's to save you time. I offer my email address so people can email me, and I see people in court as well. But our clerks do quite a bit of the actual work. for our court.
So I was going to ask you eventually about the weddings. You sometimes go outside of your courtroom, though, to preside over a wedding, correct?
Sure. It's, people, we have some lovely spots here. In fact, I've heard, I'm not an expert on this, but I've heard Houston actually, has a fairly limited of nice kind of places and maybe affordable for people to have weddings. So there are a number of bed and breakfasts and other areas here where I will do weddings for others. And also the justices of the peace often do it. Any judge can do it, but I would say the majority of the ones I do are in the courtroom. But and like I said, most judges do charge. But if we're in the courtroom and court's open, I don't charge people to do it. But I will do it outside the court.
Got it. So it feels like that as long as I've known about your work in the court, your mantra has been to find multiple options to keep people out of jail. And I think you once even told me that the last thing you want is for somebody to go to jail. So what do those options look like in College Station?
Yeah, that absolutely. The last thing, because it is a fine-only case, and yet, I probably sign the most warrants because, unfortunately, people don't show up to court. So the last thing is jail. And so what do we offer? Number one, my whole goal, even stepping back beyond the jail, is, I'm going to see individuals who are out of their parents' home for the first time, probably out of town. They're here. They don't understand all the rules, and so they get a noise violation. We're gonna see hundreds of those every year. I mean, I'm not going to end that, but my goal is for that first-time offender to make sure they don't end up in my court or another court again, and certainly not get a more serious charge like driving while intoxicated or worse. So I work a lot with what's called deferred disposition, where they do everything they're supposed to. I'll dismiss their case. We educate them about clearing their case. And so we do so much to work with individuals. If people cannot pay, we work with them. We have payment compliance officers. We do everything. Unfortunate, and a lot, I used to work with you a lot when you were at College Station with getting the word out on warrant amnesty, and we published, the names of those that have warrants. But unfortunately, if sometimes people just figure that if they can throw the ticket away and ignore it, it'll all disappear, and it doesn't. Unfortunately, there are some people who get arrested, and then I work with them there to try to fix that.
Yeah.
But that is the last thing I want to do, and we've done a lot of work in Texas in terms of reforms, because unfortunately, as we've seen, when people get in jail, then especially with a Class C misdemeanor, other things can happen. People get left there. There's just, no one, taking someone's liberty is a huge event. And so I think I've tried to do a lot of work to make sure that people go to jail as rarely as possible. It's also cost efficient. I mean, it's been a bipartisan issue. Republicans, don't want to spend lots of money on jails when there's other alternatives either,
Right.
So it's not just a liberal or Democrat or, there's really been bipartisan support to make sure that people with nonviolent, low-level misdemeanors not find their way into jail.
But you also sometimes fall back on community service options, and
Right.
you have a community living course that not a lot of people know about. I mean, you have multiple ways to help people out.
Right. In fact, this morning too, it's after the wedding, I went and taught our second to last of the school year community living class, and it really came out of your office, Jay, the communications department, yourself, and Lacey Lively and others really wanted to do some within the city where we could educate offenders about our various laws, and I've taken my part to teach them about how to actually get their case dismissed early, but completely clear their case. Because what I've seen is that minor, Class C misdemeanor, minor in possession, that gets, what happens in my court can follow you 10, 15 years onwards. We've taught. I had a call the other day from a professor who has had a public intoxication arrest follow him for 10 years, 15
Wow.
years, and it never got filed in a court, actually. But, so this data travels around. So there are laws now to clear your case completely if you're going to be a good citizen. And so we've taught well over 1,000, mostly college students, but college age students, and they take advantage of it. When you become about 20, 21 years old, and you're applying to graduate schools, applying to various employers, they're not going to ask you, have you ever been convicted of a criminal offense? They ask, have you ever received one? Have you ever pled not guilty or guilty? Have you ever been on deferred? And you can expunge your case on many of these things, and by doing that, remove that from your record, and that's important. Anyone that gets arrested in Brazos County, and you have to be arrested if you're charged with public intoxication. So anyone arrested, your booking photo is on the internet immediately.
Right.
So, and if you're going to be, if that's just one bad night that you had and you're going to be a good citizen, you can have that removed. And so we do a lot of education, and I think that's a big, I think that's an important part of my, job and what I think that, I have as a goal as a judge is to, to help people out there who want to be good citizens.
Yeah. Well, it's a great class, and I think it's been a good endeavor for the city. So College Station has had a no more than 4 ordinance for many, many years as it relates to the number of unrelated people who live together in some single dwellings. And I think it's fair to say that cities everywhere with an ordinance like this have kind of struggled in some ways to successfully enforce it. So how is your court being asked to approach this no more than 4 ordinance?
Sure. We've had quite a history. And, just starting off when you said, cities are struggling, the only city I heard in Texas is San Marcos that they actually have a no more than 2. But when I inquired, they've only had maybe a couple cases filed ever in their city. So I've yet to see, where, and when you think about it, in terms of enforcing, the goal, the reason for an ordinance like that is to really avoid the problems that you have when you have more than 4 people, living in a residential area. It causes a lot of cars out there, a lot of other problems. There's reasons for it. Historically, other cities have had other reasons for it, sometimes prostitution or other reasons that they're battling. But anyway, like you mentioned, we've had that ordinance of more than 4 unrelated since
it's
forever.
Like the 70s or something.
Yeah. Oh, even beyond that from what I've heard. But long time. The bottom line is we never had any cases filed. And in terms of enforcement, it is very. I mean, unless people are going to confess to you about it, it's pretty hard to monitor who's actually living there. Are you going to do DNA tests on unrelated? I mean, if you really think about it, it's very difficult. But there've been a lot of complaints. If you just have to travel a little bit south off of George Bush, down Welsh, and some of those streets, and you can see areas where there aren't supposed to be more than 4 unrelated. And there are citizens living there who have lived there for a long time who've been very concerned. The city council became concerned. So the past year, essentially school year, after lots of warnings and talking and discussion, about 105 cases were filed. About 110 cases were filed in my court. Some of those were against corporations who own. There are a lot of the landlords are out of town corporations.
Right.
But they were filed on corporations. They were found on tenants. I mean, if they were found, and I would say 95% of the cases people confessed and said, yes, there's more than 4 unrelated here. Some had, some even said, I'm the ghost tenant. So they actually even have lingo. But, it was very unique for our court because truly a lot of the people who received the tickets did not, and this is not a defense, but did not know about the ordinance. They did not know. Their parents didn't know. It is a type of crime that when you enter into a lease, that's just not something you can quickly turn around either. I mean, you're in your living situation. So I will say that of those 110 cases, I think 97 cases are complete. People pled guilty to them. for the most part. There are a few pled not guilty. We didn't have any bench trials, jury trials. So that would indicate to me that the people were guilty. We covered it, but the court spent a lot of time on it. It was quite a bit. What resulted from that, I think, was a discussion with the university in terms of the Department of Student Life, to go over and have it kind of the off-campus housing to work on it, element of education.
Yeah.
There's been a pause so far, unless there's a complaint. There's been a pause, but that was quite a change and quite different and very time consuming. I think I appointed one clerk to be kind of in charge as a point person, and she did about 200 hours, 300 hours on those 100. I mean, just an incredible amount of time on those cases. Now, the charge of more than 4 unrelated is a criminal charge. I was talking to you before, speaking of criminal records, I don't know that you want the charge more than 4 unrelated on your criminal record. It looks like maybe you're a human trafficker or something versus a person who just happened to have 5 roommates. But it was a learning experience, but I hope what we come out of it, the city is working on having alternative zoning for some areas to have more than 4 and a lot of communications. But I understand if landlords they can make a lot of money the more people they have. There are places that are built that can house more than 4, and so I'm not involved in all that. I'm just the person that, if the case gets filed, has to make sure people have a fair and efficient hearing of their case, and I think we did that. But a lot of education, a lot of community living classes, and other things went into it. So
right. If you just tuned in, I'm Jay Sokol. You're listening to Brazos Matters, and my guest is Ed Spillane. He's the presiding judge over College Station's Municipal Court. So let's shift to Northgate. Northgate continues to grow, mainly upward, a little bit outward, but it now has thousands of people actually living in it, in addition to becoming, the nighttime destination on Thursday and Friday and Saturday nights during the school semesters. So how does all of this growth and change in Northgate affect you and your court staff?
It has. That is probably one of the biggest changes I see. And I'm not an expert. I'm on call every 5 or 6 weeks, and I always say, I'll go down to Northgate at 2 or 3 in the morning to really see. I don't do that. I haven't done that. I someday I will. But from what I've heard, there's, things that pour out alcohol. There's a lot more, too. I mean, like you said, maybe it's upward, the bars and the numbers, but there's a lot of people going there. But one of the things that's happened, a couple things, during COVID and after COVID, the people attending Northgate, it's just not a Thursday, Friday, Saturday thing. It's not just a football weekend. It's other days. And, just this past Monday, which I know, students and others, even though it's exam time and they're busy studying, I guess if you're really busy, you party hard and work hard. But we had like about 30 or 40 just on one day, Monday, minor possession files. And
Wow.
that's rare. I mean, that's for now. That's more like a fall Monday. But anyway, but the reason I think our court has had a record number of minor in possession, public intoxication, is the police have been out at Northgate, because Northgate has also attracted many different crowds. There's been gang activities, there's been some shootings, there's been guns found there. I will the most common evidence that I see in my court is the mobile video. I will, that gets introduced in my court over something, a fight or whatever at Northgate. Well, I will, out of curiosity, watch the rest of it. And a lot of times, it's pretty shocking. I mean, what you see out there and what the officers are dealing with. And so it's very different. The Northgate, it is true, the Northgate of today is very different from 5 years and certainly 10 years ago, just in terms of that. And so because the police are out there, there has been a lot more underage cases and fighting and other things, but they're also out there on, more serious things have come out of there and for more serious reasons. So it is our entertainment center. And I know the police chief and the council and others are trying to, and the businesses are struggling to try to figure out a way to kind of control that. And because everyone wants, that to be an entertainment district. Sure. That's a fun, safe place to go to. But it is different. And and it is real. I've never seen the number of public intoxication, and I read them now too, and it's pretty shocking. The things I read, it's just I read the probable cause statements on the arrests, and there's a lot of wild stuff going on, and who knows? A lot of people would just say, "Oh, it's COVID or something," but I don't. It's definitely there's a change.
Well, like you, I've seen some examples of video, both from the cameras that the officers are wearing, and also from the other surveillance camera systems that are throughout Northgate for safety reasons. And you're right, it can be treacherous for law enforcement and anybody else there at times. So it doesn't surprise me that you're starting to see the kinds of numbers that you're talking about.
Yeah, and with the, again, I'm not an expert on what's going on journalistically here, but I know that there's, it's the tough times, and there's fewer reporters, fewer of that. So I don't think people always know all the, that someone was, half naked, drunk, and asleep in a on the street of a cul-de-sac. But that's a human being, that's a person there, and there's a lot of safety stuff that goes on, It is eye-opening.
Yeah. So we're recording this in mid-May, meaning we're in the waning weeks of the Texas legislature's regular session. Of course, there's always a chance of one or more special sessions. But which bills have you and your fellow Texas judges been watching most carefully?
Well, we watched. Right now, it's kind of strange when you watch the House. They literally name the bill. And ask for someone to describe it. The person says one word, they move on. They say, any objections? One word. It is very fast. The House is passing bills left and right. So we watched one bill get defeated that would have eliminated the ability for police officers to arrest people on Class C misdemeanors or those who haven't paid their judgment. And that did get defeated. I did know that our local reps voted against it, but that was one bill that was out there. From a criminal perspective, the not legalizing marijuana, but making marijuana a Class C misdemeanor passed the House. I'm not a betting person, but if I did bet, my guess is the Senate's going to reject that. They've rejected that each year. But really, the prosecution of marijuana has, if you go to Houston, they will not prosecute small amounts, period. It's not, you come to Brazos County, it is. You really have a divergence. So I hope someday that there's just something that is kind of across the state. So we'll see that. That would change our court if marijuana, we had jurisdiction over marijuana possession of small amounts, but I don't know if the Senate will pass that. What we're really watching, you're right, the next 2 weeks we're going to see what the Senate does with all these House bills, but there's nothing that I've seen from a criminal justice perspective that is too impactful. The only thing is with juveniles, I mentioned to you, we've seen about a 70% decrease in juvenile filings, and I think that's kind of a shame because I don't think people have stopped shoplifting or other things, and our court could do a lot with teen court and other things, other programs, and so there is a bill that looks like it will pass, but who knows? It's close to passage that would really encourage programs like our teen court, diversion programs, and would make Class C misdemeanors a civil charge, not a criminal charge, which on higher level charges for juveniles, it is a civil charge. So, it doesn't make sense that the lowest level crimes are still criminal charges. So that bill could have a big impact on us as well. But we've had just a low number of juvenile cases filed because I think with a lot of reforms that made sense in a vacuum, it made it harder to kind of file them at school and other places. So we just have seen a decrease in that. And I always think that if you can get to someone early and do it efficiently, like in municipal court, you can turn people around without them getting into more serious trouble later. So we'll see what's happened. But that's one bill I'm looking at. But other than that, from a criminal justice, I haven't seen anything that's major changing in terms of our court.
Got it. So I know there have been plenty of elected officials and jurisdictions over the years getting ideas from you, but who are you watching and what ideas are you maybe getting from them?
There's a variety. I look to, there's a national organization on court managers that I get a chance to interact with various courts. There's a National Judicial Center, and whenever it's easy as a judge to just be just in your office, and we're busy enough with what we're dealing with, but let alone to get outside your state. And so there's a number of states that do really interesting work. Most states have a municipal court of some sort. They don't call them municipal courts, but so I find that the most refreshing, talking to other judges and what they're doing. New York State, for instance, when they made a lot of their low-level offenses civil, which I'm not necessarily saying that we ought to do that, but when they did it, they learned a lot about collection and getting people to court. And what they discovered is that sending, the text messages that we get reminding us to go to the doctor, or, you make a dinner report reservation, you're going to get 3 text messages. Well, those actually work. And sending a text message saying you have court tomorrow and things like that, get people in court. So we've adopted that system, for instance, and that is so much cheaper and better than creating a warrant, an arrest warrant. It's more effective. We had a lot of ideas that, people who don't come to court are just scared or are not going to come to court. A lot of times they don't come to court because they forget, or they're just not thinking about it, or they think like magically it'll disappear, or whatever, or they're confused. And so, adapting to technology. So that's one area that I learned from New York and what they were doing. Totally different court system, different direction, but so we are texting. And the state, I'm on the Judicial Council, and so I've worked with a committee there with the state to actually have the state fund a program for courts to text message and do things like that. And that's definitely going to knock down the paperwork. During COVID too, we emailed a lot of people. You'd think email's been around forever, but email is so much more effective than mail and other things. So.
And are you seeing some evidence that it's kind of chipping away a little bit at the number of outstanding warrants that are stacking up?
Absolutely. It's reduced failure to appears, and the communication. We still do a lot on the phone, talking to people. People want to hear a human voice, but anything we can do. Our website, before COVID, a lot of judges had the attitude that the website doesn't matter. Well, the website represents you, so it does matter. Yeah. But also, it's a tool that people demand. I mean, I'm used to here a college town where it's just second nature that people are they want to. In fact, they probably want to do too much. Your community living. One of the comments I read is, "Well, I wish you could show some YouTube videos." And it's like the whole point of community living is we're in person. You can watch YouTube videos. I think it's effective to do that and have that available, but you can do that at home. So, but anyway, we've learned a lot. But technology. The use of technology to increase access has been a real key feature, and probably a positive feature from COVID too, actually.
Honorable College Station Municipal Court Judge Ed Spillane, thanks so much for coming in and visiting with me. This was a treat.
Well, thank you, the Honorable Jay. Thank you.
Brazos Matters is a production of Aggieland's Public Radio, 90.9 KAMU FM, a member of Texas A&M University's Division of Marketing and Communications. Our show is engineered and edited today by Program Director Matt Dittman. You can learn more about us at kamu.tamu.edu/radio. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Jay Sokol.